Hey friends, it's Victoria. Today I wanted to talk with you. I'm going to adjust my camera, sorry. Today I wanted to talk with you about what's happening with the banking system because things have been a little crazy pants. I'm just going to recap what happened on Friday. Silicon Valley Bank had some issues. And over the weekend, people have experienced interesting things such as places where they get their money have been telling them, hey, I'm having a banking issue. So just to recap, in the past week, actually 3 banks have had failures. First being Signature Bank, second SVB, and now today, First Republic Bank. So what's happening with these banks and what does that mean for you? I also want to talk about what the president said just a little bit ago. And you know, when we see things like that, sometimes we don't know what to do and we freak out. So before I start, I just want to tell you, we're going to take a big collective breath and everything will be fine. Okay. I actually had a very sweet lady call me. I knew her in California in the community that lived in before, and she called me and she was really stressed out because she had not heard. She never got the email from Etsy that I did on Saturday morning saying, by the way, we're having issues because we bank with Silicon Valley Bank. So she and I had a long discussion about that today. And so I kind of wanted to share with you some of what we were talking about and then also bring you up to date. First, just to recap what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. Silicon Valley Bank is a huge, ginormous bank, and they're actually one of the bigger banks in the country. And they have customers like, Etsy, Fair, DocuSign, Coinbase, DoorDash, TikTok, Zoom, Betterment, Klarna, NerdWallet, Allbirds, Affirm, Plaid, I don't know. It's whoever Etsy uses. Impossible Foods, never gonna happen. Instacart, Patreon, and Postmates. So if you get your money from any of these institutions, you may be experiencing issues. Now, I still haven't gotten paid from the Etsy order that I made and sent out over the weekend. So we'll have to see, because they say within 24 hours we should get our money. We'll have to see what happens there. So what happened with Silicon Valley Bank? Well, essentially, they had a ton of withdrawals happen and they could not cover them. Let's talk about capital requirements for a hot second. Like, what the heck is this and why should you care? Capital requirements, they're actually something that the Fed is in charge of and tells the bank how much money they need to have on hand. These are very important. And actually, I really feel like if the Fed wanted to squash inflation, they needed to increase capital requirements and the bank would have more money on hand. But is it me, or have you been hearing a lot from people? They're going into their bank, want $1,000 cash or whatever. It's not on hand. This is something that's been happening a lot lately, and it's because they're not forced to have this cash on hand. So of course, why would they? I want to just realize my collar's all messed up. Oh well. Of course, why would they do that if they don't have to? So these banks don't have to have a ton of cash on hand. Again, low capital requirements. And so that's something that's happening from the standpoint of the Fed. Something else that happened today, 12 plus banks, this was the headline. Their trading has been halted. Why would trading get halted and why does it matter? So trading gets halted when a stock or the entire stock market shifts in increments of 7% or more, 13% or more, 20% or more. And trading can stop for 15-minute increments. And if it reaches a volatility of 20% or more, they'll actually shut down trading for the whole day. And I don't know if that's where we are in relation to some of these banks, but you can see, okay, so Silicon Valley Bank, really big bank, all of a sudden people wanted to take all their money or 10 of their money out of this banking system. And now people are fearful and they're wobbly. Okay. And that is kind of what's happening with the banking system today. So let's see what else I wanted to cover. So one thing I'm going to mention, and I know that I'm going to get some kind of backlash for this. So I worked in financial services, and let me tell you, everyone in financial services, they're like blue suit, black suit, straight laced people. And then you look at the risk manager for Silicon Valley Bank. I'm just going to encourage you to go look them up, because when you hire people that are all about the fluff, the appearance, and not all about the doing the good job of it, you end up running into problems. And I'm just going to let you research that on your own, because I have my own opinions and I don't want to completely get blocked by YouTube for saying anything. So what you need to know now, Biden had a speech. He said there will be no losses borne by the taxpayer for this incident. First of all, you're a liar. You are a liar, Biden, because even if it doesn't come out of the taxpayer coffers, what will end up happening is, because we're printing more money, we've talked about this before, we're printing more money, which causes what? Inflation. So if we haven't been experiencing enough inflation as it is, but the government will try to convince us that inflation's going down, not really, we're going to be seeing more inflation in the future, because we are bailing out this huge bank. Okay, so no losses borne by the taxpayer, not exactly true. Secondly, he says the money comes from deposit insurance. And let's just talk about FDIC for a hot second. Actually, FDIC is insurance, and the bank only had roughly enough insurance to cover 1% of all deposits, not all deposits. So if we're being honest here, FDIC is not going to cover all the deposits, and all of this is going to come from the government. Another thing that Biden said was investors are not protected. So guess what, Jack? If you bought Silicon Valley Bank stock, which by the way, Jim Cramer, who's like, this guy is an entertainer. Well, don't take any advice from him, okay? He doesn't have a Series 7. He's not licensed to give financial advice. And by the way, this is not financial advice. This is my opinion. But don't follow Jim Cramer. Actually, a month ago, he told people, Silicon Valley Bank, it's such a great deal. And guess what? If you purchased a month ago and you just held on to it, you're like a buy and hold investor, you're screwed, because investors are not protected. And that's exactly what Biden said. And he goes, oh, investors, well, they got into it themselves or whatever. I'm getting all worked up about this. Okay, what else? Another thing is Biden wants you to believe that the banking system is strong. Technically, okay, if we're going to get into it, the banking system is only as strong as people believe that it is. When we have a bank, what happens? I'm taking my cash. I'm saying, hey, bank, you hold on to my cash so I don't have to have a coffee can, coffee cans full of cash buried all around my backyard, right? Instead, we're giving it to the bank. We're saying, you hold on to it. And most of the time we're getting interest for that. And they take the money and they go do other stuff with it. The banks are making money from your money. Well, the thing is we're in a weird, this is a weird environment right now. We're high inflation. People are not so secure about what's happening in our financial environment. And so people are easy to get spooked. If they get spooked and they go and they say, I want to take all my money out of the bank, remember It's a Wonderful Life? Yeah, it's the same thing. They're not going to have enough money on hand to give to people because they have already loaned it all out to people, or they've done things like have long-term government bonds where they can get money from that. So the bank actually doesn't have your money. They're doing other stuff with your money. So the fact that Biden wants you to believe that the banking system is strong is not necessarily, of course he wants you to believe that, because otherwise, if he came out and said, yeah, we're all screwed, everybody would run and try to get money out of their bank. And what would happen was the people who would get there first are the people who are going to get their money. The people who get there last, they won't get squat. So What have I learned from this? Because I always try to, let me just make sure I've covered everything. Yeah, I've covered everything. We're up to date. This is it. So what do we do about it? What do we need to know? So first of all, you need to know what you're invested in. If you think that you could be invested in the financial services industry, I want you to call your investment advisor. And by the way, if you have one and you don't know what you're invested in, like either you're not doing your job as someone who is investing their money, or your advisor isn't doing their job. So you should call them up and you should say, hey, am I invested in any of these banks that are getting shaky, that are getting wobbly? You need to call them up and ask that. What else would I do? I would also be preparing for anything. I've been talking a little bit about preparing on this channel because here's the thing. 3 years ago, all of us had our worlds rocked, right? Like there's no freaking toilet paper. Like what is happening? What I can tell you is, people looked forward to going back to normal. This is not normal on many levels. And I feel like we're in a brave new world and we need to be prepared for whatever is coming at us. And this will help us with our anxiety. And let me tell you, I'll just share with you, I am a type A personality. I run close to anxiety all the time. And actually, I find myself taking things like ashwagandha supplements and things like that to help me with my anxiety. I don't need any help being more stressed out. I got that covered. What is going to help you be less stressed out right now? For some of you, I really want you to take a look at your life, okay? Because let me tell you, a couple things are not happening. Taxes aren't going down anytime soon. Inflation is not going away. And I think that's a major too. Inflation is not going away. Taxes aren't going down. We're going to be in this stagflationary period for a while. And actually, I read this interesting article that said when you have inflation that has prolonged for several years, it could take up to 10 years for an economic cycle for you to get out of that economic cycle. And that's assuming, first of all, we're in a free market. We're not in a free market. Right now, there's a lot of market manipulation by people like the Fed throwing money at the situation in terms of we saw quantitative easing in the terms of stimulus checks during COVID. All of that messes with our free market system, right? So have an understanding of the fact that things aren't exactly normal, and how we, if you're about my age, how we grew up with things, the manner in which our world worked is not the same. You need to figure out how you can provide yourself with stability and security. And I'm talking mental, emotional, financial, physical security and stability. I was talking with this lovely lady today, and we were talking about her leaving California. The thing is, California, crime is on the rise, homelessness is on the rise, and also taxes are crazy, gas is crazy. This impacts every piece of your life. And I'm just going to say it, for us to move to Texas and experience that, our groceries are about 40% less, our housing is about 40% less. I think that our insurance was about the same in terms of car insurance, and our umbrella policy and all of that is about the same. Just having things be cheaper has been a breath of fresh air. Why? Because it's so much less to worry about. It's okay, where can we put that money to work? And that's what I want for you. I don't want you to be stressed out every day and be like, oh my gosh, there's this new emergency. How do I take care of this? What I want you to do is be prepared in whatever way that's going to work for you. So for me, I have a family, so I may or may not have 40 pounds of flour in my pantry, and I'm cool, I'm chilling. For you, it may look different. It may look like I need 10 grand cash because of my business or whatever. So it's going to look different for every person, but if this isn't a wake up call that we need to prepare our lives and our home for whatever like stinking Jerome Powell, Biden, whatever bank's going to throw anything our way. This should be a message to you. This should be like a wake up call and be like, all right, let's get on it. Let's make sure we got our life in order. And what I want to tell you is, I know it's one more thing you have to do. If you're like me and my husband, it's just like there's a lot happening in life every day. It's like getting slammed with something. It's like a tidal wave, right? Every day. I understand that reevaluating your life and figuring out things like, should I move cross country where it's a cheaper cost of living? And then like, how is that going to work out? Things like that is big. Those are big decisions. But what I want to tell you is, once you've done it, you start to feel the relief of that. And on the other end, which is where my husband and I are, now that we're settled a little bit, we're like, okay, now we can move on. Because it's not every day we're getting slammed with something. Like living in California, it's like, oh my God, there's a new tax for this, there's a new tax for that. Like, oh, and then this is more expensive, and then gas and blah, blah, blah. So wherever you are in your life, I would love for you, this is my wish for you to come up with a plan of how you can make yourself recession proof, unbeatable, unstoppable. So that when things like this happen, you're like, you know what? The world may be on fire, but everything's okay here at my house. I'm chilling. So figure out what that means for you and do it. And let me tell you, I want to give you all the emotional support you need on that, because it can be hard to make life changes, and especially dealing with people in your life that are like, but why would you want to move from blah, blah, blah? Or why would you want to do this? Just ignore all of those people and do what's best for you. Okay. All right, friends. That's all I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to fill you in on what was happening with Silicon Valley Bank, the banks, what Biden said, what's happening, because I did get that phone call today. I wanted to make sure that those of you that are with me and that are here, like, I love you. Thank you so much. And I want to let you know I'm paying attention. I want to be able to provide to you the information that you need to make the best financial decisions in your life. Please share this with a friend, okay? Because we need people to know what's going on in this world, and we need people who have that financial knowledge to speak plainly, okay? Like, how many times have you talked with a financial person? You're like, I don't even know what you're saying, right? We need people to speak plainly and say, this is what's going on, because that's when you can make great financial decisions. All right, friends, I'm sending you some love from my corner of the world to yours. Take care. Have a fantastic Monday.